Bruce Lee was adapting when Ip Man, his Sifu, warned he was unbeatable, and then Bruce Lee was adapting when Ip Man, his Sifu, warned him, "You're not yet unbeatable." Ip Man's warning echoed in Bruce's mind like a gong that didn't stop vibrating. He knew that the master did not speak out of arrogance, but from experience. Each word carried the weight of decades of struggle, of defeats disguised as victories, of opponents who seemed invincible until the moment they were no longer. Bruce took a deep breath, muscles still burning from the strenuous workout. The Hong Kong dojo was empty except for him and the shadows that danced on the walls in the dim light of the lanterns. He had spent months refining his Jeet Kune Do, absorbing what Ip Man had taught him, but also breaking the rules that the old master insisted on keeping. Style limits, Bruce muttered to himself, as his fists sliced through the air in precise movements. Fluidity overcomes rigidity. But Ip Man was not a man of mincing words. "Do you think you understand what it means to be unbeatable?" he had said, his dark eyes fixed on Bruce's like blades. "It's not strength, or speed, or even technique. It's knowing that no matter how good you are, there will always be someone better. And that someone could be ahead of you before you know it." Bruce gritted his teeth. He was no longer the arrogant student who challenged kung fu masters in public squares, humiliating them to prove his superiority. Now, he understood that the real fight was not against others, but against the illusion of perfection. Still, something inside him refused to accept limits. The unexpected challenge. 3 weeks later, a man entered the dojo unannounced. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded black gi, he moved with the stillness of a predator. His name was Kazuki Tanaka, a Japanese Kyokushin karate fighter who had defeated 17 opponents in underground tournaments in Osaka. He wasn't there to train. "I heard that Ip Man's disciple is fast," said Tanaka, his voice calm, almost bored. "I want to see if it's fast enough." Bruce felt his blood boil, but he maintained his posture. It wasn't the first time someone had challenged him, but there was something different about the man, a cold confidence, as if he already knew the outcome of the fight before it even started. "This isn't a ring," Bruce replied, crossing his arms. "If you want to prove something, go to a tournament." Tanaka smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Tournaments are for men who need rules. Not me." Before Bruce could react, the Japanese attacked. The first blow was a Mei-Jeri straight to the chest, so fast that Bruce barely had time to dodge. The force of the kick pushed him against the wall, and he tasted blood in his mouth. Tanaka didn't let up, a hurricane, spinning punch, came next, and Bruce only managed to partially block it, feeling the impact reverberate through his forearm. "He's strong," Bruce thought, but brute strength doesn't beat technique. He counterattacked with a series of chain punches, alternating between straight strikes and hooks, forcing Tanaka to retreat. The Japanese blocked most of them, but one of the punches hit his chin, making him stagger. For a second, Bruce thought he had the advantage, until Tanaka recovered and responded with a Yoko-Jeri, side kick, that hit him in the ribs. Bruce fell to his knees, panting. Tanaka didn't come close to finishing. He just stood there, watching. "You're good," admitted the Japanese. "But it's not unbeatable. Yet." Ip Man's lesson. Bruce spent the next few days training like a man possessed. He slept just 3 hours a night, repeating movements until his muscles screamed in pain. Ip Man watched him silently, without interfering. "Are you trying to beat Tanaka or prove something to yourself?" asked the master one morning, as Bruce punched a bag of sand so hard that the leather began to tear. "Both," replied Bruce, without stopping. Ip Man shook his head. "Tanaka is not your enemy. Your enemy is the idea that you need to be perfect. You are already good enough. What you lack is not technique, it is understanding." Bruce stopped, his fists still clenched. "So what do I do?" "Let him beat me." "You fight. But not like a man who has something to prove. Like a man who already knows who he is." The reunion. The fight took place in the port of Hong Kong, at midnight, under the pale light of the moon. There was no audience, just the two of them and the sound of the waves crashing against the wooden pillars. Tanaka attacked first, like before, but this time Bruce didn't try to block. Instead, he dodged at the last second, letting the shot pass him and using the Japanese man's momentum to knock him off balance. A quick trap on the arm, an elbow strike to the face, and Tanaka fell to his back. He was up in a second, his eyes burning with anger. That was luck. No, said Bruce, calmly. It was adaptation. This time, Tanaka didn't underestimate his opponent. He moved more cautiously, using short, precise strokes, testing Bruce's reactions. A Gyakuzuki reverse punch almost hit his nose, but Bruce leaned back, letting the blow pass, and responded with a hook kick that hit the side of Tanaka's head. The Japanese staggered, but did not fall. He spat out blood and smiled. Now yes. They fought for another 10 minutes, a dance of strikes, blocks, and counterattacks, each trying to find a gap in the other's defense. Bruce used everything he had, Jeet Kune Do, Wing Chun, even movements he had seen in Muay Thai movies. Tanaka, for his part, was a precision machine, each strike calculated to cause maximum damage. In the end, it was Bruce's mistake that decided the fight. He tried a spinning back kick, a risky move, and Tanaka grabbed his leg, throwing him to the ground. Before Bruce could get up, the Japanese man was on top of him, his fist raised for the final blow. But Tanaka stopped. You're the first one who made me sweat, he said, panting. But it's still not unbeatable. Bruce smiled despite the pain. No one is. Tanaka reached out his hand and helped him up. The end of the journey. After that night, Bruce never saw Tanaka again. But the fight changed something inside him. He stopped seeking perfection and began seeking truth, in movement, in breath, in the present moment. Ip Man found him weeks later, sitting on the edge of the harbor, watching the horizon. Do you understand now? Asked the master. Bruce nodded. Being unbeatable isn't about never losing. It's about never stopping learning. Ip Man smiled. Now you're ready. And Bruce Lee, the man who once believed he could beat anyone, finally understood that the greatest victory was not over others, but over oneself. The Dragon Awakens. The months that followed were strangely still, as if the world had held its breath. Bruce trained no longer to prove something, but to feel it, the weight of the air in his lungs, the tension of his muscles before the blow, the silence between one movement and another. Ip Man watched him from afar, satisfied, but he knew that the real test was yet to come. It was on a humid afternoon in Hong Kong, when the smell of fish and burning oil wafted over the pier, that Bruce got the message. A manila envelope, with no return address, slid under the door of his apartment. Inside, just a sheet of paper with a date, an address and a name, Li Wei. He knew the name. Li Wei was a Sanzhou fighter, a master of the modern Chinese martial art, known for his brutality and for never being defeated. It was said that he broke bones as easily as other men shook hands. But what caught Bruce's attention most was not the man's reputation, but rather the meeting place, an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, where the shadows swallowed the light and the echo of the waves crashing against the concrete pillars seemed like a warning. On the appointed night, Bruce arrived alone. The warehouse smelled of rust and salt. In the center, under a single hanging lamp, Li Wei was waiting for him, surrounded by half a dozen men armed with batons and chains. He was shorter than Bruce had imagined, but his shoulders were as broad as steel beams, and his eyes, cold, calculating, were unblinking. You're the man they say can't be beaten, said Li Wei, his voice slurred like sandpaper on metal. Let's see if your philosophy can take a beating. Bruce didn't respond. He just took a deep breath and assumed the Jeet Kune Do posture, his feet light, his hands loose. Li Wei's men advanced first, like attack dogs. Bruce moved between them like water, dodging, hitting pressure points, making them trip over each other. But Li Wei didn't move. He waited until his men were on the ground, groaning, before stepping forward. The first blow was a roundhouse kick that Bruce blocked with his forearm, feeling the impact reverberate up to his shoulder. The second came like a direct punch, too fast to dodge. He twisted his body, but pain exploded in his ribs. Li Wei didn't fight with technique, he fought with hatred. Every blow was a promise of pain, every movement carried the weight of years of accumulated anger. Bruce backed away, panting. He remembered Ip Man's words, the real fight is not against others, but against the fear within you. And then, instead of counterattacking, he did something unexpected. It stopped. He let his arms fall to his sides and looked Li Wei in the eyes. "Why do you fight?" he asked. The question caught the man by surprise. For a second, the mask of fury faltered. Li Wei hesitated, his fist still raised in the air. "What? You don't fight for honor. You don't fight for technique. You fight because you're afraid of losing. And that makes you weak." The anger returned with redoubled force. Li Wei charged forward like a bull, fists flying. Bruce moved at the last second, using his opponent's own strength against him. A blow to the elbow made Li Wei howl in pain. A kick to the back of the knee knocked him down. When he tried to get up, Bruce pressed his foot against his chest, immobilizing him. "Surrender," said Bruce, his voice calm. Li Wei spat blood onto the ground. "Never." Bruce sighed. So instead of breaking it, he reached out. Li Wei looked at her as if she were a snake. "What is that?" "A choice," said Bruce. "You can keep fighting the world, or you can learn to fight it." For a long moment, there was only the sound of their ragged breathing. Then, slowly, Li Wei held Bruce's hand and stood up. The legacy. Years later, when Bruce Lee was already a legend, a young fighter sought out Li Wei in a rundown gym in Shanghai. The man, now older, with scars that told stories, watched the boy showing off high kicks and punches in the air. "You fight well," said Li Wei. "But do you know why you fight?" The young man frowned. "To be the best." Li Wei shook his head. "No. You fight so you don't have to fight." And then, for the first time, he taught the boy what Bruce had taught him, that true strength is not in winning, but in knowing when to stop. That the greatest martial art is not the one that destroys, but the one that transforms. On the other side of the world, in a small studio in Los Angeles, Bruce Lee watched a home movie of his students' training. Among them, a familiar face, Tanaka, now older, demonstrating a movement that Bruce recognized as his own, but with a fluidity that only time could teach. He smiled and turned off the projector. The journey had no end. Just new beginnings. Dragon's legacy. Years have passed since that day in the Hong Kong courtyard. The young man who kicked the air furiously was now called Kai, and his reputation as a fighter had spread through the streets and underground rings. But something had changed in him. He no longer sought victory at any cost. He had learned to hear the silence between blows, to feel the weight of Li Wei's words echoing in each movement. One day, a challenge came to him. A foreign fighter, known for breaking bones and humiliating opponents, had landed in Kowloon with a single objective, to prove that Kai's philosophy was weakness disguised as wisdom. Local newspapers were already speculating. Will Li Wei's student retreat? Will the dragon disciple be just another victim? Kai didn't accept the challenge right away. He went to the old master, who was now walking with a cane, his eyes still sharp as blades. "He wants blood," Kai said. "And I don't want to give him that." Li Wei smiled tiredly. "Then don't give it. But remember, not fighting is also a choice. And choices have consequences." On the night of the fight, the ring was packed. The foreigner, a man with broad shoulders and scars on his face, mocked Kai as soon as he saw him. "Where is your master now, boy? Or has he already given up on you?" Kai didn't respond. He just took a deep breath and assumed the posture that Li Wei had taught him, not that of a warrior, but that of the river that runs around the stone. The first blow came quickly, a punch straight to the face. Kai missed it by inches, feeling the wind cut his cheek. The audience screamed, waiting for the counterattack. But Kai backed away. Another blow. Another detour. The stranger growled, frustrated. Fight, coward. Then Kai stopped. It didn't move. It didn't block. He just looked into his opponent's eyes and said, quietly, I've already won. The next punch never came. The stranger hesitated, his hand in the air, his hatred wavering. Kai didn't back down. Didn't attack. It was just there, motionless, like a mountain that doesn't shake in the wind. Silence took over the ring. The foreigner lowered his fist, confused. What is this? Some trick? It's not a trick, said Kai. It's choice. The man laughed nervously and turned to the audience. Did you see that? He doesn't even fight. But no one laughed with him. Some even looked down in shame. Because suddenly everyone understood, Kai wasn't running away. He was showing something none of them had ever seen in a ring, that true strength doesn't need blood to be proven. The foreigner stormed off, swearing, but Kai didn't care. He knew that, somewhere, Li Wei was smiling. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Bruce Lee watched the news from Hong Kong on a small television in his studio. The images were grainy, but he recognized Kai immediately. The boy who was once just another face among his students now carried something that not everyone understood. Did you see that, Linda? He asked his wife, who was sewing a training uniform beside him. She looked at the screen and nodded. He learned. Bruce turned off the television and was silent for a moment. So, he took out an old notebook, full of notes about movements, philosophies and dreams. He leafed through until he found a blank page and wrote. Martial art is not about dominating others. It is about dominating yourself. And the greatest test is not the ring, but life. Outside, the sun was setting over Los Angeles, turning the sky orange and red. Bruce closed the notebook and smiled. The journey continued. It would always continue. Years later, Kai opened his own school in Hong Kong. It wasn't a grand place, just a simple hall, with worn tatami mats and walls covered in photos of old masters. Among them, one of Bruce Lee, smiling as if he knew a secret. The students arrived full of fire, wanting to learn how to fight. Kai taught them to breathe first. Thinking. Understanding that each movement was a question, and the answer was not in the fist, but in the heart. One day, a 10-year-old boy, thin and wide-eyed, entered the room. He kicked the air hard, trying to imitate what he had seen in the movies. Kai approached and placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. You fight well, he said. But do you know why you fight? The boy frowned. Kai smiled. The story started again.